Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Hillary. You're
I'm
here?
trying to figure out if I can attend 2 Zoom meetings at one time. I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know if it's possible. So I'm glad you're on here.
You're Superwoman.
No, I don't know if it's even possible. I'm thinking I'm going to have to get my iPad out to join the other one. Or
Yeah. The other one is, just tell me what the other one so I can so I can tell people.
that's the emergency management team with the Board of Selectmen.
Okie dokie.
So maybe what I'm going to do, and if I can hand over hosting to you, then I can leave and come back. So let me
Okay.
see.
Tell me what I have to do that.
I don't think you have to do anything.
Okay, good.
I just need to figure out if I can make you oh yeah, make my co-host. Okay.
Can you wake me up too?
No, but I have strong coffee if that helps.
I've had strong coffee. I think it's raining inside my brain.
Okay, I'm gonna try to leave here. You're now the co-host.
Okay.
Can you text me if it all shuts down?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then I'll figure out another option.
Okie doke.
Okay, end meeting for all. No, I would like
Hi,
to-
John. How are you feeling?
Morning. I'm not sleeping very well, so don't expect great things from me today.
You're not sleeping well. I feel like it's raining inside my head. So
Oh, really?
yeah, so we're in great shape.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Well, hopefully we'll get some help from our colleagues.
I'm sure we will. Oh. Okay, I have to admit Mike Fisher. Mike, are you there? Mike?
Yes, I'm here.
Good.
And if you want, I can try to put the text up on a screen.
Okay, could you do that when we start? The reason is I'm having to admit people and I don't know if I'll be able to see that if
Sure.
you do that. So,
Absolutely. We'll try it.
okay.
Is Hillary coming back?
She will if she can. She has to attend the emergency management team meeting,
Oh,
which unfortunately overlaps with this. So
Oh,
she's
okay.
going to try her best.
uh-huh.
Mm.
Went out to Duck Harbor yesterday during a low tide. And actually I went out during the storm, that northwest wind a few days ago, and watched the overwash again. I went out at low tide and just to see how much sand was deposited. It's a huge amount of sand deposited now over the marsh surface. It's changing.
Yep, it's going to keep changing, don't you think?
Yeah. And there's another low spot closer to the path that overwashed a little bit during that northwest gale.
You said it's not going to be a permanent channel.
No, I don't think so. Very unlikely.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Leon. I'd be curious to see what happened at the tennis court.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think anything now. You mean the one at just near me?
Yes,
There's a berm that's still holding back the water.
I
And-
know, but the water has been so high, Mike. I just wondered how much of it had overflowed because it often does that.
Yeah, there's one corner that's sort of been covered, but in this last one, the wind was away from it. So I don't think anything, I walked past there and it didn't seem to be
Okay.
topping the berm.
Hillary has unfortunately another meeting at the same time and will try to jump back and forth. Her meeting is with the emergency management team for the town, so she apologizes. I don't know who Clams is.
Someone from the library, probably.
Oh, maybe it's the shellfish department. Nancy or someone.
I don't know.
Bivalve.
What's happening?
What I was saying is that Hillary cannot attend the entire meeting. She is unfortunately double scheduled with an emergency management meeting for the town, so she will be jumping back and forth.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe that, did you all get that email from Outer Cape Health about the conference call tomorrow?
Yes,
Yeah.
5:30.
Maybe related to planning around that. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm just waiting for Ben and John Kumbler. But if they're not on by 10, we'll start.
But Chris is not here, right? So do we need minutes?
We do need minutes. So is there anyone who would like to take minutes for us? It's a very simple process. It's a work session. So all it would say is that we entered into a work session and we worked on on reviewing the following sections of the draft. And then if there were specific comments that you thought were important, those comments. Is there someone who could do that, please?
Afraid
I
I'm
will-
gonna have to bail at 11 because I have another appointment. A doctor's appointment I need to go to.
Well, I think it's only for an hour, Leon.
Okay.
I'll take notes and come up with some very brief minutes.
Yeah, I think that's fine, Barbara, because we will, of course, be presenting this at public session, for review and talking to Horsley Witten about it also. So I'm going to open the business meeting of the Town of Wellfleet Conservation Commission. This is not a regularly scheduled meeting, but a work session on February 2nd, 2021. This is held pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 through 25, as amended, the Wetlands Protection Act, the Wellfleet Environmental Bylaw, and its regulations, along with Governor Baker's orders on remote meetings, which commenced on March 12, 2020, and have since been supplemented. The commissioners present at this time are John Portnoy, Mike Fisher, Leon Shreve, Barbara Brennicell, and Debbie Freeman. What I'd like to discuss in this business meeting are the regulations pursuant to the Wellfleet Environmental Protection Bylaw. They are draft regulations submitted to us very recently, around December 28th, 2020, by our consultant, the Horsley Witten Group. And I think the way that makes most sense would be to go through these from the beginning to the end and try to collect comments. And if that precipitates a discussion about ideas for further regulation, terrific. Don't be afraid to raise those whenever you need to. I see John Kumbler has joined us now. Hi, John. Okay, first of all, I just want to say that I thought the regulations were very helpful and quite good. I don't know if anybody else was dissatisfied with them or had other thoughts.
I thought they were good, going in the right direction for us.
Yep. Okay, so let's start with introduction and purpose. Does anybody have any comments on that?
Well, let me see if I can put this up on my screen.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Michael.
That'd be great.
Do you have it?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so that's the version with their tracking. Would you rather have the clean version?
I think the clean version would be easier to read, but that's just my comment.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's see if I can do that. Hold on.
If you can't, don't worry about it.
No, I think I can. I just have to figure out how to do that.
While Michael's doing that, I have a comment because Helen Wilson contacted me and she said, which section of your bylaws has stuff about the shellfishermen driving on the beach? And we actually don't have anything about that at all. Because in the shellfishing regulations, it does say that who drives and where they drive has to be approved by us.
Barbara, I think that that would be the subject of an individual NOI. I don't think it would be necessarily anything different from any other request to use and alter a particular piece of land.
I just mentioned it because Helen wanted me to pull out where it was in our regulations and we don't have anything about it. So
No, I mean, does anyone think differently? I think it would be addressed, each time it was raised. I don't think we could particularly address it in one fell swoop because there are some historical paths and there might be a request for a new path. And I think they'd be two different situations. And I don't think that would be addressed in regulations. I think that's something we would want to investigate at the time.
But wouldn't the regulations at least have to say that we would have to be in the loop for?
Well, they would have to, Leon, because they're using land within our jurisdiction for a purpose which alters the land. So it would be within the scope for us automatically.
the other issue I think is if someone has a new shellfish license and hasn't driven before, can they do so without permission from the Conservation Committee? It would be additional traffic, I'm just bringing it up because we have nothing at all in the regulations. We could bring that up with Horsley Witten and see if other
Okay.
towns address that as well.
Okay. Anything else on the introduction and purpose? Or
Debbie,
general
I have a question on process. Is this going to be the only meeting we have on this? to
No,
discuss?
no.
Okay, because there's some things, there's some contentions that the consultant makes in the memo, the introductory memo that
Right.
I have some concerns about, but I'd like Hillary to be here when we talk about them.
My thought was that we would definitely have another session and we would have a session with Hillary and Horsley Witten, and then quite possibly another session after that.
Okay, in the
Um,
introduction and purpose on the first page, second, page 2,
Yeah,
under purpose, letter J, it says protection of ecologically important plants and trees. Trees are plants, so it should just say plants.
okay.
I also have something about it says protection of wildlife habitat, but should we also include wildlife? Not
Yes,
just their habitat?
yeah.
So I would put protection of wildlife and wildlife habitat.
Okay.
Is this showing up on your screens?
No,
No.
I'm just seeing a tiny bit of it, Michael.
Oh, okay. What are you seeing?
Wellfleet Environmental, January 1st, 2000 amended.
Oh,
Looks like you
okay.
need to open it up full screen.
Well, I've got it on full screen, but it's not,
It's not transmitting full screen.
yeah.
Do I have to hit share screen?
Well, if you can see anything, it would be, can you see it now?
Yes.
There.
Oh, okay. So
Okay.
I've made those two changes that that you suggested.
Oh, good, you're doing that,
Perfect.
all right.
Perfect.
Can I go back to Barbara's point?
Yes, John.
Um, I'm not sure, given our charge from the state, we can protect habitat that wildlife thrives in. And we can obviously prohibit behavior that will alter that habitat if it affects wildlife. But I'm not exactly sure what protection of wildlife itself will entail, and if that's going to get us into other problems.
It's the same as H, protection of fisheries. How are we going to do that?
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Okay. Going on to section 1.02, statement of jurisdiction. Is there anything there that anyone would like to comment on?
Yeah, I have something on, oh, no, it's, no, it's on the next section, sorry.
That's okay. If you go down to section 3, this is a really, it makes sense later on, and let me explain. It says any property owner that's not correct grammatically. It should say who, because later it refers to he, she. So if we're talking about people, it's not a that, it's a who. But I think we're talking about entities, and who would cover an entity also, but I'll show you later on what I'm talking about.
Hey, can we go back to 2A?
Yeah.
Yes,
It says removing, filling, dredging, otherwise altering. We do a lot with tree trimming. Should that be specifically there or just fall into otherwise altering?
I think altering includes it.
Okay, because it's not the area per se, but it's, anyway, okay, that's fine.
Okay. Going on, section 1.3, general provisions.
I have one on page 4, under continuing liability for compliance.
What number is it?
3.
It's 3A.
Right.
It says any person who purchases, inherits, or otherwise acquires real estate upon which work has been done in violation of the provisions of the regulation or of the order shall forthwith comply with any such order, restore such real estate to its condition prior to such violation. I have 2 questions about that. For one is, does this apply to alterations before 1978? And second, must the Conservation Commission issue an enforcement order within 3 years of a property transfer, as currently stated in the Wetlands Protection Act 131-40?
Okay, let me address those, John. We don't have any jurisdiction prior to 1978, so I don't think even if we attempted to expand our jurisdiction, we would get anywhere with that.
Okay.
As to your second point, and I'm sorry, I've forgotten it now because I was thinking about something else.
Do we have to, does the Conservation Commission
Oh,
have to issue
Yeah,
an
the
enforcement
3-year
order?
let me explain. We can be more restrictive than state law, but not less. So state law says 3 years. We could be more restrictive than that. We would have to have a reason, I think, to do that, but we could.
Okay, I have, John, do you have any questions
Well,
for
I just
Jeff?
wondered, do we have to issue an enforcement order within the 3 years to take action against a past violation?
Well, under the way this is written, no. This gives us the ability to do it at any time. So this
Okay.
would protect us from that limitation.
Okay, so it
Let
doesn't
me
really
just
refer,
address
it
two
doesn't
things.
really refer back to that Wetland
Right.
Protection Act.
Right.
Okay,
Right. So first, in section A, it says in accordance with his, her burden. And I think we should strike his, her and say the, because the applicant doesn't have to be a person. The applicant can be an entity. So
I trust, good point.
I want that out. And in 3A, it says any person who purchases, and I think it should say any person or entity. who purchases.
Good point.
Okay, so
Um,
go ahead.
If Michael's putting these in, do I have to put them in the minutes? No.
No, I think you
Okay.
can say, just see the draft for
Right,
proposed change.
okay. I have one other thing about this section.
Yes,
Burden of going forward and continuing liability, there's A, but there's no B, C. So why are there A's there?
it's just the way they did the regulations. I would just leave it alone. We can discuss that with Horsley Witten.
Okay.
All right, moving on. Are there any comments on the rest of section 1.03?
Under 5, it's a small point, but they should have a capital V in variances under 5A,
Okay,
but I've got that.
okay. All right, section 104, definitions. And there may be comments here, but in 2, the ACEC is a natural and culture resources area. I think they dropped a word there.
I'm sorry, I've lost track of where we are.
Go down, keep ACEC,
Right,
and then where it says resources, it should say area. It is not, is a
Right.
natural and cultural resources. It doesn't make
Got it.
any sense. What's the word? Okay. Now, are there comments on 104?
Yes.
Go
On
ahead, please.
toward the bottom paragraph of page 6, coastal engineering structures. It says that they include breakwaters, groins, etc., sandbags. But then in the last sentence of that paragraph, it says placement of biodegradable netting or fabric should not be considered a CES.
Yeah,
So there's a contradiction there. Sandbags are normally biodegradable fabric.
so you want
Okay.
to add in non-biodegradable under sandbag, before sandbags?
Yeah.
Before we
No,
do,
well,
can
well, we
can I,
want-
can
hold
I-
on, John, 1 second.
we want biodegradable, don't we?
Right, so I think we need to just, at this point, circle that and work on that.
All right, I've got it highlighted.
Okay, the other thing is in the list above of materials to protect a shoreline from erosion, do we want to add vinyl? Because remember, we just had that proposal for vinyl. Because this isn't including but not limited to, this is armored shoreline is a CAS that uses stone, wood, metal plates, or similar materials. And I don't know what similar materials are.
Where's that? I'm having trouble seeing. that.
Armored
Armored
shoreline.
shoreline definition.
Oh, I see it, okay.
And Michael, it looks like you have a comment there too.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can read my own comments, but I can't, so.
I just, other similar materials, I don't know what that means. I mean, vinyl is not similar to stone, wood, metal, plates.
Yeah, I think they mean hard materials, but I
Well,
would,
maybe that should go in there, other similar hard materials.
Well, the vinyl would be sheet piling, it would be plates, so you could say,
Okay,
we could
okay.
put it right after metal or vinyl plates. I don't know, it's hard to predict what'll come up in the future.
I was
you know.
I
just-
know.
yeah.
Vinyl, what was? No,
How
What?
do you
trying to spell
vinyl?
vinyl,
BINYL.
YL.
YL. Okay,
Or other similar hard materials, I think would be the safest.
Debbie,
Yeah, John, go ahead.
rather than the materials, which gets us into the problem of what happens in the future, we just say armored shorelines is a CES used to cover other than biodegradable netting or vegetation that's used to cover and protect the shoreline from erosion. Because they can come, I mean, you know, they can come up with something that's not vinyl, that's not, you know, what we want is a definition that gives us power, not one that limits us. And I think we don't need to list the materials.
Okay. Michael, are you able to put down
comment?
what, yeah, John said?
Well, but I just suggested, don't go with this until.
No, I want to put it in as a comment. So we talked to Horsley Witten about it. I think it's very good and important.
Is that more or less, should we limit by listing? Can you see that?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I just put in concrete reconciled with CS below. So I think below it says something else, but
that's true. Concrete isn't listed in the materials either.
How about if we just say non-biodegradable materials?
That would be my position.
Well, that's something we can work on, I think.
Yeah, I think with just keeping a note on it, it's really good. John, does that cover, John Kumpler, what you were talking about?
Yeah,
Okay. And then going down to the way they've done these headings is they're usually followed by a verb afterwards. And ecological restoration project, there's a verb missing there. So it should be ecological restoration project is.
Is, yeah.
okay.
All right, going on page 8, are there comments?
Yes, I have one on isolated wetlands, second paragraph down.
Right.
Yes.
Do we need to specify that all of these, you know, the marshes, swamps, bogs, et cetera, are protected regardless of their size? There's no, in other words, there's no minimal size.
I think there's a definition of vernal pools that has a size within it, doesn't it?
Well, that also refers to vernal, my comment also refers to vernal pools. It doesn't give a size here on page 9.
It talks about whether certified by Mass National Heritage Endangered Species or not.
Right. But there could be very small wetlands, freshwater wetlands that are very small, and also they haven't been certified. Many haven't been certified as vernal pools.
So
And we-
John, if we were to say isolated wetlands of any size,
Yes.
or are freshwater wetlands of any size?
Mhm.
Well, we put it in here.
No, put it up under wetlands.
Isolated wetlands are freshwater wetlands of any size. That works.
Mhm.
All
Okay.
right. Are there other comments on that? Okay, going on to page 9.
I have comments about 8 under living shoreline. It's a little confusing to me, that first sentence. When it says may or may not be fortified by subsurface structural elements, like are those hard elements? Are those rocks? Or small scale above ground structural features? I don't know what those structural things are.
I think they're talking about something buried, Barbara. that-
Yeah, but could it be a hard stuff? Could it be rocks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's not, I don't think that's my concept of a living shoreline.
Well, it says may not be fortified by any of those things.
Oh,
no, it's may or may not.
may or may not,
Yeah, but it may.
but it may,
May.
right?
And it
So
says
just
these
take
are,
out may.
I don't see how these are, it says these are distinct from arbored shorelines, not in my view.
Mhm.
You're saying this is just a CES, John, right?
Yeah. If there's any kind of structural element, hard structural element incorporated,
Yeah,
that's just my view.
Yeah,
no, I
that's,
think
that's how I interpret it. You could actually have a CES and then throw something on top of it and call it a living shoreline.
or you could have an old CES lying under the ground.
Yeah,
I don't know, but I
I
think, I think they should explain this to us so that we can understand what they're talking about before we get rid of it, because if there's something we're missing, I don't want to throw it out.
Well, my view of living shoreline is something that can roll with the punches and retreat in a natural way.
Yeah. So I don't know what this is.
well, I didn't either, so that's why I had a question. We can ask them.
Why don't we just ask them to explain what this is? And why it's not included within the regular CES.
It's a good one, Barbara.
Okay, any other comments on page 9?
Yeah, I have some.
Go ahead.
Just the species list is not appropriate for us. We don't
Okay,
have, as far as under vernal pool indicator species, second paragraph from the bottom, we don't have a bunch of these species, but they left out spotted salamander, which we have, and which is also an indicator, an obligate species in vernal pools.
Isn't that the first? Blue side isn't that the first in the list?
No,
that's-
no,
no, that's
that's
a
a different kind. Yeah.
That's a different one. We have that straight spotted salamander. We don't have blue spotted or Jefferson or marbled. Those three we do not have, as far as I know.
Yeah, we don't have maculata, which is the one John's talking about.
okay, can I ask a dumb question? With climate change, are we going to see these species moving in? And do we want to not remove things because they may show up? I just don't know.
Is there a state or other document that has vernal pool indicator species that we could just refer to?
Not sure, probably.
Probably.
Yeah,
We
So
do
I
have
guess-
the out that it says, but not limited to. So
the Natural Heritage must have a list.
So I guess, is there a list that we could refer to that will change over time?
Right. Or that's so inclusive that if any of these things pop up in Wellfleet, they're covered.
Okay.
It says included but not limited to.
Right.
So can I go back and ask a question about, I mean, it happened earlier and I didn't bring it in, but it happened in isolated wetlands and again ponds. They define them specifically as fresh water. What about the possibility that a pond is brackish water? Is that not a pond? I mean, may not have any right now, but I can imagine in the future, you get overwash, you'll get brackish water, and what was a freshwater pond is now a brackish pond. I mean,
John Portnoy?
we have one of those.
over time, but does that, I'm just asking, do we want to keep fresh water in the places with our definition?
Leon says we have one.
Don't we have one just south of Newcomb Hollow? That
Oh,
pond
yeah, that's true. That's gotten
that
brackish.
went 2 years ago, right?
So my question is, do we want, is there a reason we have to say fresh water?
I think the definition of an isolated wetland has been traditionally freshwater, but I don't think, given the changes we're seeing, there's any reason it couldn't be inclusive of something that's brackish.
So can't we just take out fresh water? Just say isolated wetlands are wetlands that may or may not blah, 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 and ponds, any open body of water, you know, naturally occurring, man-made, et cetera. I'm just asking this as a question.
I think that's a good point. You could leave out fresh water.
Okay, well, I've got a comment to that effect.
Okay.
Okay, great. All right, anything else as we move ahead?
On page 9, under small vessels, we proposed eliminating without a motor. right?
Okay, I'm not seeing where you are.
It's
Right.
definitions under S's, small vessels,
Oh, that's page 10. Okay.
page 9.
Page 9.
Well, the pages are going to vary by how you printed it out, so that
Oh.
doesn't help.
Oh, okay. Small vessel.
Okay. So we took out without a motor.
Yeah, now, again, there may be some sort of law about what a small vessel is, but
Okay,
our
but
intent is
again-
not to exclude vessels that might happen to have a motor.
Right, so I think we can take it out and we'll talk to Horsley Witten, and if there's a problem with that, we'll find out.
And also for the use in waterways, I wasn't sure what that added. I've got a comment on this, but if it's not used in the waterways, then you can leave it there forever?
I don't know. I don't know what that's there
You can
for.
leave a dune buggy or something. That's a, I don't know.
I think that could come out. You're right, Michael.
Can I make a suggestion back on the question of without a motor? I think we're absolutely right that you could have a small craft that you can affix a motor to. But if they need to have something about, motor, it seems to me it should say without, I'm just putting this as a suggestion, without a fixed motor. Well, never mind, because they'll say,
No.
forget it, just without a motor, I think needs to go.
Right, I think if we leave it blank, it means with or without a motor.
Right,
If we put in without a motor, we're limiting it.
right. No,
Just from a technical standpoint.
Yeah.
Electric motors are one thing and outboard engines are another. I mean, to be precise from an
Right,
from an
but
engineering
if we
standpoint.
leave it out and we just say watercraft,
Right.
then I think we're covered.
Right,
Okay.
so if we say, anyway, if we keep it in, then we should have it say or engine, right?
Right, but not, or like, there's an E on your or.
All right, any other comments on section 1.04?
well, again, under wetland resource area, I questioned the fresh water, if we need that.
Okay, so you would say any wetland. Okay. I think the problem is that maybe in the definition of wetland, and we need to be very careful that wetland doesn't imply brackish or salt water rather than freshwater. As if it works, perfect.
In this particular definition, it says any freshwater wetland, but it also includes coastal wetlands, which you assume are saltwater or brackish.
Right.
So that would include,
That would take care of it. Okay.
so if you just put any wetland, then you're not including freshwater. So I would,
So
I-
let's-
Okay.
All right. 105. Let's move on to that.
I have a couple of general questions. Actually, longstanding questions I've had on the procedures. Doesn't an NOI, doesn't the order of conditions get filed with the deed as a lien on the deed until a certificate of compliance is granted?
that's my understanding.
It gets filed with the deed. I don't know if the word is a lien, but it is filed and it has to be removed.
Okay,
by-
and that it's removed through the granting of the certificate of compliance?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask also about filing requirements 2A? It says all applications, RDAs, NOIs, and so on, require a site plan, locus, narrative, and notification to abutters, right? The names of abutting property owners. We don't require that for RDAs currently.
Is there any reason why we would not?
Well, only that the RDA is supposed to be a simpler process and that neighbors are not necessarily supposed to be notified.
But is it so difficult to notify the neighbors? I mean, if we're,
No, I agree with you. It's just that in the RDA form and in the instructions from Doug, it always says for an RDA, you do not have to notify neighbors or even list them. So there's a discrepancy between the form and the procedure.
well, right, if we were to adopt this procedure, the form would have to change.
That does make it a lot more complicated to file an RDA and
Yeah.
more expensive. And people might not go through that trouble. They'd have to go to the assessor's office, find out the abutters. They might just cut down the tree before they even get to that point.
But Barbara, it's not really a big deal. You call the assessor's office. You get the names and addresses. They email it to you.
You have
And you
to
send notification.
You have to send certified mail.
Well, it just says you have to have the names. It doesn't say you have
Yes.
to notify them.
Right.
Oh, okay.
But that's true of an NOI as well. It doesn't say you have to notify them.
Well, I think there should be a question as to what does this mean and how will it work?
Okay, a plan. Question. And the other thing that is on this list, which we haven't been getting with every applicant, is square footage of areas of existing and proposed disturbance.
Which is in the requirement. It's in-
Right, but we don't
Yes.
get it in a lot of things, right?
Well, I think we have to start requiring it.
Yeah,
The other thing is, it says landscaping and revegetation plan, including a species list and planting schedule if applicable. I think it should be more specific, saying a species list, size of plants, and a planting schedule. Because we've seen where people plant really dinky little things and say, oh, I complied.
So species list, including size.
mhm.
Yes,
Species list and, well, I guess for some species, size is not necessarily relevant, and others it is.
right. So, I mean, we can fiddle with that, but you know, for example, if it's bearberry that they're putting on the ground, we might want to know how many flats of bearberry they're going to put in, okay? But if it's a tree, we want to know what size.
So it should be species list, number of plants, including and size and planting schedule.
Yes.
What about location?
Oh, Hillary, you're back. Great.
Sorry. Location,
what-
size.
Okay, wouldn't that be in the revegetation plan?
Oh, I feel like we have to specify because if they're planting it, 12 feet on center or whatever, I
Okay,
just feel like the more we include, the better in something like that.
sounds good.
So we don't get
Species including
clouds.
size or number of plants as appropriate and planting schedule, including location. Is that?
Yes, good.
All right. Anything else before we get to fees?
Well, sorry, can we just go back? So Hillary, were you here when we were talking about the filing requirements?
No,
Okay, so the requirements say for an RDA, NOI, and so on and so forth, it requires all of the following, including names of abutting property owners, which we've not been doing.
so on RDAs that we generally
Sure.
don't require any abutter information on an RDA.
But it says we have to. And also, it doesn't say anything about notifying the abutters, only listing their names, even for an NOI. So we just have to reconcile the forms and what we want with the specifications.
I mean, I think we should continue on the notice to require a butter notification because that's required by the state. But on the request for determination, it's usually a smaller application. And so I would say we should not require it on that.
So we have to change these words.
Yes.
Okay, I've got a note about that so we can talk to them.
Okay, perfect.
Now, on the fee schedule, Hillary, is there
Yes.
any reason to change the fee schedule?
I feel like we just changed that rather recently when we added the after the fact filing fees. I think it's appropriate.
Okay, is $1,000 enough? We seem to be running into quite a few of these after the fact filings.
So I think it is enough because it seems like an awful lot of money. And when we tell people they have to pay that, like I just see stars in their eyes. So I feel like it is enough.
Okay,
Thing is,
Oh.
it always feels like enough if someone transgresses due to ignorance, but if it's like part of the plan to go ahead and pay, and
Yeah.
make plans to pay the fee, then it's not enough as a deterrent. So
Although
I don't
I
know.
guess I feel like we haven't, well, it's tough to distinguish ignorance versus.
Yeah, I know, that's the problem.
intent. But I feel like when I talk to these people, it's not their intent to violate. But again, I'm the conservation agent. What do I know? I mean,
okay, here's a thought. What about people who violate more than once? What about contractors who violate more than once? Contractors who are working on the land in Wellfleet absolutely have to be aware before they start of the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission.
so
Why are we not punishing them for their bad acts? Because they shouldn't be contractors if they're not aware. I mean, we've had Jeremy Young in for 2 or 3 times. We've had Froggy Fraser in
mhm.
for 2 or 3 times. It's contractors who concern me the most.
So what if we had a fee schedule for a contractor violation? Well, or would that be a non-criminal citation? Like I'm hung up on whether that's a fee that we charge or we have to just issue the non-criminal citation.
I think it should be a note to Horsley Witten to ask,
Okay.
you know, what do we do with contractors who violate more than once? And we're not talking about more than once in a 5 or 10 year period. We're talking about a very short period of
Yeah,
time.
so I know. I guess I'm wondering how we would, like, what would we call that? Repeat contractor offense or?
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know how to like.
Serial offender.
Is it?
John?
Yeah, this is actually a fee for after the fact notification. If someone it's like violated our rules and we see they violated the rules, we can fine them. And that's where I think we should increase later on, we talk about, daily, charges for violation. We can,
Right.
and that's variable. That's we get to choose what we do. Why not make the enforcement at that end? That is, you violated, and every day this violation is is happening, you're going to be fined up to, and I think we should increase it dramatically,
Right, that's enforcement in
Leave this-
105,
this-
section 5.
Yeah, and then leave the fee as a fee.
Okay, Hillary?
We can't increase from the $200 per day per violation because that's under Mass General Law.
Oh, well, okay.
So
Okay.
that's why the fee might be the way to go to get around that. I'm just not sure how we would. Maybe we call it an after the fact filing of a notice of intent by a contractor and hold the contractor to the higher standard than the homeowner and make that, $2,000 or some amount more.
Yeah, I think it's a question for Horsley Witten, or is it a kind of citation for a repeat offender? And we put in a section under enforcement which says repeat offender, citation. Under enforcement, we add a B.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that section, right? I mean,
Okay,
So on the certificate of compliance, it says
yes,
upon completion of the work, but we don't have any time limit. And as we know, it can be years or even decades before they apply for the certificate of compliance. Can we put in some sort of a time limit?
sure, upon completion of work and within 3 years of issuance of order.
Does that get us into a bind for someone who doesn't get the certificate of compliance, sells the property, and then the new owner, or tries to sell the property, new owner realizes there's not a certificate of compliance and it was 7 years ago. They didn't realize, and now they're sort of stuck. We don't give them the ability to do it at a later date. I just think it's their loss not to do the certificate of compliance. We
Well,
don't,
isn't a seller required to obtain the certificate of compliance in order to
Close.
to clear the
Yeah.
deed?
in order
right,
to
but if
transfer
it's
the
5
property.
years later, the
doesn't-
seller goes to sell the property and discovers, oh, I forgot to get the certificate of compliance. We need to let them get the certificate of compliance. I don't,
Well, I think we always have the ability, John, to vary from the regulations. Remember that.
right, I'm just not sure why we need to have a time limit here.
I guess what
Well-
it does is it cleans things up and it makes things regular. And
The
it
trouble-
reminds
Sorry, go
people
ahead.
to get it done.
The trouble has been that we get requests for a certificate of compliance decades or less after the work was done. None of us, the town doesn't have a clue what was the intent, what was the project. And we have to
Right.
assess whether it was completed as described. So that's the problem with waiting.
Well, if we have a question for the Horsley Witten and we have 3 years as our, draft, maybe that'll take care of this.
Okay. Then Hillary, on enforcement, you said we cannot change the $200 violation per day.
Nope.
I really wish there was some other mechanism to make people realize how serious this is, because with the repeat violators especially, if we're stuck with 1,000 and we're stuck with 200 a day, it's just a cost they can add into the project.
Well, it does say per violation, and we can usually figure a way that it's more than one violation at a time.
You can try.
So I'll put in a note about for contractors as well as
Second offenders.
We could deploy the polygraph.
Oh, man.
okay.
All right, going on to wetlands resource area buffer zone, section 2.01. Comments?
I have a minor comment on, well, it's my page 14. It's number 1F, exotic and invasive vegetation within the buffer zone. reduces the natural productivity, it says, and value of these areas. I think we should insert the word natural diversity, comma, productivity. Natural diversity, comma, productivity and value. Yeah, like that.
Got it.
Okay, just going back a little bit, taking out the plants and trees the way we had, where is it? Yeah, and protection of ecologically important plants and trees, taking out the trees, right? Because they're
Yeah.
plants, that's what John had said earlier.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I think that was my add. And then adsorbed, is that a technical word or a misspelling?
Where is that?
And the new C, vegetated buffer zones 2, 4, 6, 7 lines down, microorganisms or
Oh, it's back a page.
Adsorbed is with a D is good. I would
Oh,
say.
okay.
Yeah, adsorbed is fine with a D. That makes sense.
Okay, I just never seen that.
Yeah, it means that the chemicals are stuck onto the soil particles on the surface, adsorbed.
Okay, I've learned something.
Okay. If we go to definition, section 2, critical characteristics and boundaries. My first question under A and B is, are we limited to 50 feet? Can we enlarge this, Hillary? The no disturb zone and the protection zone. We
Yes.
know that, okay, then I would propose that we increase the no disturb zone by at least 25 feet and that we increase the protection zone by another 25 feet. And the reason is we know that the shoreline is migrating landward. We know that we are experiencing severe erosion in areas on the bay and on the ocean side. And I think we have to retreat.
Debbie, I suggest, I have written down 100 feet. Is there a reason not?
No, I just was trying to make it more palatable, John, by going in a smaller bite. But if you want a larger bite, that's fine with
Well,
me.
the reason I was thinking about 100 feet is the point you were just making, is that we're seeing the coastline erode at such a rapid rate that, and we've been very frustrated at the 50 feet. At least I've been frustrated at the 50 feet. So I'd like other people, I just had 100 feet written down, but I want other people's input.
John Portnoy, do you have any comment about this?
Yeah, I would go with 100 feet.
All right, I stand corrected. It's fine with me. I was just trying to anticipate complaints.
We can always anticipate that.
Right. Right. That's a guarantee.
There will be complaints.
True. Shame on me.
So that would make a total of 200 feet, which is the same as for Riverside, right? Riverfront.
Yep.
I think we're gonna have to beef up our variance section to go along with this, because I think we're gonna continue to see a lot of requests in this area. So just put a note to self that when we get to the variance section, we circle back and make sure that there's a clear process for that.
That
So
seems,
it
Just
seems to me,
commenting on that. I mean, I can understand allowing the variance section to work when it's a small lot. And
Yeah,
there's need to move the septic. But other than that, are you talking about variances for decks and increasing the house size?
well, I think we want to sort of lay out what the process is, what they're going to have to submit to us.
Okay. All right, then any further comment?
Question, do we want to have that specific to coastal banks, coastal beaches? Because we can tie that back to erosion rates and sea level rise. Or do we want that even on BVWs and freshwater ponds and,
Again, I
think we
think
have-
the freshwater ponds is not an issue of erosion, but there is the freshwater ponds, there is the issue of runoff and pollution that I think we need to, that it's a slightly different issue, but the added buffer zone, I think, is important in both cases for slightly different reasons.
I agree with John. Also, sea level rise is affecting the freshwater
Yeah, it
wetlands
has to, right.
across the
Absolutely.
peninsula. And Horsley Witten bring that issue up.
okay,
All right, so going forward, comments in the standards for the do not disturb zone.
Under the buffer zone, under B,
Yeah.
no, notwithstanding that one, proposed, well, let's see. Commission shall,
Finds is wrong. It should be.
yeah,
fine.
okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
You know, I've got that out.
Okay.
I have a suggestion under B.
Okay.
Number 1 says new, let's see, trawling activities are prohibited in the no disturb zone. Remember, in number 1 is new and expanded lawn and garden areas. My suggestion is that we make an exception for food gardens in
Okay.
already disturbed areas. We're already allowing lawns within 50 feet.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed where you were. Now I see.
Okay,
Okay,
so I'm suggesting that we allow food gardens of a reasonable size, for example, up to 500 square feet. I think in this day and age, we should be allowing people to grow food, and even in low areas, provided they're already disturbed. In fact, there's a tradition in Wellfleet. I'm not sure that it's something we have to consider, but it's history that people would grow their vegetables in low spots because the soil was better, finer particles and higher organic content. And
you
I just
remember
think,
when we,
I think that we don't want to prohibit people from growing food in small vegetable gardens.
remember when we were over at Helen Purcell's property? And there's the garden there, right next to the marsh.
Right.
But then they're going to put fertilizer on the garden.
yep.
Yeah, they'll have to put fertilizer, but perhaps we can't prohibit fertilizer application on disturbed areas now. People are fertilizing lawns. I think that maybe, Hillary, there's some way we can recommend, or I don't know that we can require the use of organic slow release fertilizers. Maybe we could put in some language like that. But anyway, that's my suggestion, that we allow exception for food gardens within disturbed areas, already disturbed areas, within the 50 or 100.
I agree with John on that. Especially if we're increasing the buffer zone, and the fact is people put fertilizer on lawns all the time.
I'm sorry, I've lost track of where we are. Can we have a,
We're
This
in
is all-
section B1.
Right, that's what prompted it.
Keep going, Michael, keep going. It's my page 17. It's part of
Oh,
standards for the no disturbance zone.
you got it there,
Right
Yep.
there.
B1.
Nope,
up
there you
top
go,
of the
Here, right
page.
up, keep going.
oh, there you go. Okay.
right there.
Yeah, it's number 1, new and expanded lawn and garden areas. That's what prompted this.
So why don't we just take out garden? Right?
Right.
Okay.
All right, further comments in section B. All right, performance standards for the protection zone. Now, here they're doing an interesting thing. This is the 20% of the total area. Whereas before, remember, we have the 3,000 if it's a newer lot and the 5,000 if it's an older lot. This is a totally different way of calculating it.
Well, it says, which is the lesser of 3,000 feet. So if it's a huge lot, what was it?
Right, we're still stuck with the 3,000. We're
Right,
out of the 5,000.
Mhm.
We've got 3,000 or 20% of the total area. And remember, some of these lots are postage stamp lots. So we're talking about a very, very small area.
Mhm.
Well, it's an improvement.
It is an improvement.
Do we want to put in language, if you are already exceeding that amount? How do we want to handle that?
I'm afraid I have to check out, guys.
Okay, Leon, thank you.
Bye, Leon.
Bye.
On the issue of checking out, I just want to tell you, Hillary, I have to go to Fall River to get my vaccine tomorrow. So I
Perfect.
not make it to the town meeting,
The executive session?
executive session.
Okay.
Tried, but I have no idea how long it takes me to get my shot in Fall River.
Thank you.
Congratulations that you're getting one.
Mm.
Let me
So
tell
we
you.
can- let me just put in a question for them.
Okay.
I have one thing in that section. It refers to upgradient. And that could be confusing. I mean, maybe there is everyone knows what that means, but I don't think everybody does.
You're looking at section B.
I'm looking at performance standards for the protection zone. Activities shall occur outside an upgradient of the protection zone.
And then it's in B also.
Yeah, so
And C.
is that the common, people know what that means?
I think so.
Okay,
Debbie's
That
saying
could
no.
mean, that
I
could
mean,
mean,
if-
that could mean two things. It could mean up slope, but also could mean up gradient in terms of the groundwater flow.
yeah, that's why I was confused.
Hillary, how do you interpret it?
Slope.
Slope, all right.
For conservation or up from the resource area.
Up slope's good for me.
Is upslope a word? I don't know.
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
We can hyphenate it. Then we'll be safe.
Upslope? Okay. Sorry, I just didn't know.
So it's there, and is there another place other than this?
Yeah, look in B.
And-
Activities located up gradient, first line.
And it's also in C.
Well, I guess they were thinking, what if the water flow, doesn't it matter which way the water's flowing? The groundwater?
Well, so that's,
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
two different meanings there.
yeah, I brought that up, but I was willing to back off on that one after Hillary said it's normally upslope, so. I don't know, it's probably pretty safe just saying upslope, but I don't know what you all think.
I would rather go with gradient.
Well,
I
I
like
think,
up gradient too, but
why don't we discuss it with them and explain that there's some confusion there?
Sounds good?
Yeah.
Okay, and does anybody have any concern with section D? The lesser of 3,000 square feet or 20% of the total area. See, now it's 20% of the total area of the protection zone. So do we want to say 20% of the total area of the protection zone or of the lot area?
Well, 20% of the lot area would be much bigger
It
by
depends.
definition.
It depends.
How could it not be
The
bigger?
lot could be entirely within the protection zone.
Yes, so if you say the lot area, that would mean it's the same, right?
Yeah, you're right. I'm wrong. Okay. All right, then going ahead.
Wait, can we go back to that? I'm just thinking what that's gonna look like how we're gonna have to calculate the total area of the protection zone. So I think we're gonna want that on our submission, that they
Yep.
give us that number.
So back in the
Back in.
form,
Yeah. Yep.
they need to provide the total area within the protection zone on the property.
And I
It's
think
in-
we ask for that, right? We're asking for we ask for the total area of disturbance, but
Disturbance,
not
right.
the total area of the protective zone. So we want that to be included.
Good catch.
Sorry.
No, good catch.
I'm sorry, I'll make sure I got that.
Okay, so you
So
see where
up
it
in the
says the
form.
total area of the protection zone? And then
Right,
there should be a note that in all of the forms, RDA, NOI, whatever it is, look at D, Michael.
yeah, I got it.
The protection zone should be calculated and displayed in terms of total area.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm trying to go back to the original filing. That's what we're looking for, probably.
Right.
Yeah.
Filing requirements here at
Right.
the top.
And site plan, number
You
3.
see,
Yeah.
Right, so it says square
Square-
footage of areas of existing and proposed disturbance is part of the filing fee,
Yep.
filing form.
and
Square footage of the resource protected zone or resource area.
Okay,
I think we just have to make sure whatever terms we're using are consistent throughout.
yep.
okay.
All right. Then if we jump back to where we were, you'll
Right,
see in F1, the no disturb zone, whatever we determine, if it's a 50-foot, if it's 100-foot, that needs to match.
Yep.
And in the next sentence, it needs to match.
Right.
And then it goes on, but every number needs to match with whatever we select.
okay.
All right, and then if we go on to 4, this is the substantial demolition. Barbara, I think this addresses your issue of pre and post 1978 dwellings.
I had a comment before that.
Okay, please go ahead.
Under 5D, number 1 and number 2 that talks about the calculation of the disturbed area. Are we including existing lawn area as disturbed? I'm not sure we've consistently done that, and I think we should.
I think it's in the definitions includes lawn. Yeah, new or expanded lawn areas. We took out the garden, so it's there.
Can I, Do we want to say instead of lawn mowed areas?
Well, that previous reference to new expanded lawn, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the inclusion of existing lawn area in the total disturbance for a new project. And it seems to me we haven't been consistent in considering that disturbed. And it's clearly not native vegetation cover, so it is disturbed.
Do we have a definition of disturbance?
We
Uh,
should.
We should, but we don't. We go from diffraction to ecological restoration projects. So it could go in the definition.
Yeah, we should add that.
Can I suggest that we add or mowed areas? And I think of that property at the bottom of Old Chequesset Neck Road where they were mowing into a wetland, and that's a disturbance. And
Yeah.
we don't, and there, I don't want us to get into a fight about, well, what's a lawn?
John, Portnoy, does that incorporate your comment too?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so let's let Mike catch up.
Yeah, I'm trying to do this multiple places here. Okay, so we want under disturbance, we want a definition, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then,
I would just note lawn and mowed areas so that
as
we
a
don't forget it.
so just a definition here.
No, in disturbance, going back,
Oh, okay.
I would just say that it needs to include lawn and mowed areas.
Okay,
Okay, yeah. Mike, I know I didn't say this at the first, but thank you so much for doing this. This is wonderful.
Yes.
well, yeah.
It's so
well,
so
I
much
think
easier. Yeah.
Okay, I think we are up to page 18, which may be page 17 or page 19 of other people's, depending on how it printed out.
Well, okay.
He just has that one section to change expanded lawn to expanded mowed areas, which is the,
Under which is it? Where are we? Protected zone in this section?
no, it's
This is 5.
under standards for no disturb zone.
Or buffer zone, no disturb zone.
Section 4, you see it, Mike?
Stands for buffer zone, stands for no disturb zone. Right, okay, got it.
Okay, so towards the end of that section, it says expand, right, prohibited. It says new or expanded lawn and garden areas. At the bottom, you were just there.
Right,
It should say new or expanded mowed areas. Is that what people want?
That's what I would like.
well, if we have them both, then it,
Yeah, I think the lawn and
Well,
mowed
both,
areas.
yeah, that's both of them. Okay.
Okay. Then
and we went through the upslope. Where do we get?
I think we're on page 18,
Uh,
which is,
Number 4, you're almost there.
Okay,
Right. projects, that's where we are.
Okay, comments?
I have a comment on number 7.
Okay,
Driveways within are up gradient of the protection zone, which upgrading of the protection zone, that extends our jurisdiction above what we have now. And I wondered, we're talking about extending the protection zone, but how far does this go? It just says upgrading of the protection zone. Isn't it a problem if we don't limit this?
Hillary, can we reach this if we say that if impervious materials are used in this, it would result in water or pollutants flowing into the protected zone?
You want to add that language?
No, I'm saying, can we extend our jurisdiction like that because of
Well, except how
far?
Yeah, because if a house is 200 feet from the top of a coastal bank, we wouldn't normally see them, and they could put in their driveway their pervious or impervious driveway.
Well, we can ask the Horsley Witten Group about this.
Yeah,
And also we have that up gradient word again.
yeah.
We changed it to upslope.
Mhm.
Oh, I thought we changed it back to upgradient.
Oh,
We're-
We're still deciding.
All right,
I like
don't
upgrading it
know.
myself. Can
Oh, man.
I go back to 4?
Yes.
I understand, the question is the measuring the 25% of existing size as measured in square footage of the foundation or cubic footage of the structure. I'm not sure what they mean by cubic footage of the structure.
cubic footage is like the interior capacity of the structure. I think
I want something that would, for example, if you have, we shouldn't do this, but assume malfeasance on the part of the applicant. They include a summer deck that's been enclosed with screening as their square footage of the structure to expand what they have to make the largest possible extent, to then claim that they're not going to 25% when in fact they're effectively going to more than that. I see what I'm saying? How tight is this definition so that we don't get caught with someone measuring things that aren't really, that they're in fact increasing the structure more than 25%? Am I making any sense at all?
Yeah, I think you're talking,
like the Holbrook house next to the boatyard where they enclosed those decks.
Right.
right. I think you might be talking about square feet used as living space continuously versus newly added. You know, something like that. I don't know.
Can we just put a question there and have
Yeah.
talk?
Yeah.
We can talk about it further.
And also, we should say something about whichever is less, shouldn't we?
The cubic dimension is a little bit perplexing to me because that would include like the living space inside, where I'm not sure we care about a second story or a third story. We care about the ground disturbance. So I'm struggling to wrap my mind around that cubic measurement.
Right, so I guess that you would add Y cubic at all.
Except we sometimes get stuck talking about, well, the bigger the house, the more intense the use is on the land.
Of course. I mean, I
Right.
think what we're trying to do is limit the impact. And, you know, a house that's 3 stories and cantilevered way the hell out is going to have a bigger impact than one that's not. So I just think we need to have some help on this.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
And I like the whichever is less.
Hearing out on Lieutenant Island, where they were claiming that the house is 4 times as large. You know, then we get into that debate about, you know, what's big versus big.
Right.
Right. And it had 3 bedrooms before, and it's only gonna have 3 bedrooms
Yeah,
now.
so like,
Exactly. Exactly.
it's a conversation I'm never comfortable having.
Yeah. Okay, so moving along from section 4, are there comments on sections 5 through 8?
Does anyone, on number 8, first line, what's lifting the canopy? What does that mean?
I thought that meant topping.
No, I think it means the other way around.
Yeah, the
Means
other way
cutting-
around.
Cutting the bottom.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think we need more words there for ignorant people like me to understand what it is. Let's see.
Sorry, so it's 8.
8.
If we get rid of the sentence lifting the canopy, cutting, pruning, limbing, or other destruction above ground, that covers whether you do it the top or the bottom.
Yeah.
True. Yeah,
Yes.
we can get rid of it.
Okay, under that, on this, let's see, 8.
Well, let me catch up. I'm not sure I see where the lifting is.
Just first line in
Go
number
to
8.
8, Michael. The beginning, cutting, pruning, lifting the canopy.
Oh, okay, I was skipping over it. Right, okay, so we just delete that.
That's right.
Cutting.
Yeah,
Because that is
um,
cutting or it's pruning.
Yeah,
Or
right.
lifting.
And
So under 8B, it seems like we're being, this business of no more than 20% of the tree canopy, it sounds like we're being less restrictive than the Wetlands Protection Act, which talks about no more than, we have to retain 90% of the canopy.
Right.
So we need to change that.
Yeah,
10% then?
Yeah.
to be consistent with what the Wetlands Protection Act says now under the definition of vista pruning.
Okay, and what is this, and not devoid of one species? I don't understand what that is.
What's
So they
that?
can't cut down all the oak trees.
Containing more than one, okay, so you have to leave more than one species,
Yes.
okay?
There's another lifting in there too.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, under 8B, third line from the bottom of the page.
Right,
Visitors are encouraged. I think just,
Do we want to get rid of topping may be permitted? Because we don't want to permit any topping.
yeah,
Can we just say filtered vistas are encouraged?
I think we should still get rid of topping may be permitted because we don't want to permit that.
Right.
No, I was just saying, cut it after filtered vistas are encouraged and remove the rest of the sentence.
Right. And I have a question on D.
Okay, let's finish.
should we decide about and shall be accomplished through pruning? Just delete that,
Delete the rest of the sentence, maybe.
yeah, I'm good with that.
okay?
Vistas are encouraged.
My question on D,
Wait, hold on. I think we have to deal with C first because that's
oh, I'm
a
sorry.
proposed.
You can just say the health of the tree must be considered as well as the impact of the,
Yes.
And no instance, a third of the ground trunk shall be pruned? Is that branches? What is? You're not going to cut a third of the trunk.
No instance shall more than 1/3 of the above ground trunk be pruned.
That would be topping, right?
don't
No, it could be filtered pruning as well.
Of
The
the
above,
trunk?
above ground trunk goes from the soil to where?
The sky.
To the sky.
Maybe we just get rid of that because if it's unclear to us, it's unclear to any other human being as well.
Well, maybe there was, I don't know, maybe previous commissioners thought that was important to retain 2/3 of the main stems that that you see.
Well, why don't we put a question in for Horsley and Witten on that?
All right.
As to why?
I just can't recall us ever asking an applicant anything about 1/3 or 2/3 of the trunk.
Well, now we know.
Oh,
It's our fault. It's on us.
all right.
All right,
D,
I have a
John.
question on D.
Yes, John.
That dead or diseased trees may be removed if they endanger a structure or live vegetation. Do we want live vegetation in there?
No,
I would say take it out.
Okay. Do we ever allow uprooting?
Barely ever.
Okay.
Should there be anything said about leaving the snag if it's
Uh-oh. You with me?
Yeah, I think that should be a question for Horsley and Witten. Because we're going to need to learn how to phrase that.
dead and diseased trees may be removed? Well, that's if they endanger a structure. So I agree with that. We're not going to have a snag if it's endangering the structure. So I think we're okay there.
Okay. All right, in E, why is there a difference in the replacement for sapling trees and shrubs for mature trees?
Should be more replacements for the mature trees.
Right. But is 3-to-1 enough?
no, I suggest 5-to-1
We've been requiring 5-to-1,
and 3-to-1 for the sapling replacement.
right?
Okay.
Good.
All right, section G. Any comments?
Do we want to think about requiring IA for any system in the protective zone?
Absolutely.
I suppose we could be as bold as to require enhanced IA for those in the filter strip and regular IA for those in the full buffer zone, or,
In the do not touch, you mean?
Mhm.
yeah, sorry, we're getting away from filter strip to do not touch.
Right.
Right. No, I think that's great.
Hillary, I don't know what the Board of Health is doing. Is there, are they requiring maximum leachate concentration, for example, nitrogen concentration at the from the leach field?
So
Rather than just saying enhanced IA, whatever that means.
So the enhanced IA gets down to 5 milligrams per liter. The regular IA gets down to 19 milligrams per liter.
But what I'm saying is, should we simply tell them what they have to achieve in terms of concentration?
I think common terminology would be the enhanced IA and then just the, regular innovative alternative.
Okay,
And
as
may-
long as those concentrations are well accepted
Yes.
in
And
terms
maybe-
of outcome.
And maybe
Yeah.
something will come up that does even better. So we wouldn't want to limit them to 19 when they could get 10.
Right, but I'm thinking if we at least plug it in here, Board of Health is reviewing their regulations, we plug it into Board of Health, and then, they are consistent.
I
Yeah,
like that.
Mhm.
G should match Board of Health.
Yeah,
I think we should just say AI, advanced AI systems.
so in the no-touch zone, which is 0 to 50.
Or 0 to
To
100.
100.
0 to 100, enhanced. IA. And then it's 100 to what? On the 100 to 200? Is that the idea?
Yeah,
Okay, so that's the buffer. Okay, perfect.
And a lot of folks don't even have that much property. So,
right, I know.
Okay. I'll report that back to the Board of Health.
Okay.
Well, I have it right there in the no-touch zone, enhanced IA is required, in the protected area, AI is required. Is that what you want?
It's actually innovative alternative,
IA,
alternative nutrient reducing systems.
so it's IA.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Then H,
Buffer zone goes to protected area.
Buffer goes.
No, I'm just talking out loud. We are not gonna call it the buffer zone anymore. We're gonna call it the protective area.
Right.
Sorry, just terminology for me here.
okay, then 202, are there comments?
I have a comment on the end of number 1A, paragraph A. Says later stage impacts include excessive die-off of vegetation leading to plummeting levels of salt oxygen and eventual ecosystem crash. I would suggest we delete eventual ecosystem crash and insert and loss of native biodiversity.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
We just need an and in front of that, Michael. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I got it. A, there. And the biodiversity is spelled wrong. So I'll get that.
Okay,
have something on E that we can consider. It's about outdoor showers.
okay,
But then he calls them
rinsing. station.
rinsing stations in other places. But anyway, they can, carrying, in addition to soaps and detergents, I would put chemicals and toiletry projects and nitrogen as well. I don't know if that's necessary, but it's not just soaps and detergents that go to wetlands.
Yeah.
So carrying soaps,
Detergents, chemicals in toiletry products, and nitrogen.
Right, definitely, and nitrogen.
After
That's
John's.
my grandson.
Right, I remember that.
or you could say nutrients because phosphorus is an issue. in
That's
some
right,
places.
nutrients.
Okay, right.
Okay,
Toiletry products, not projects.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right, any comments on F?
I've got one. Recharge aquifers. Strategy to recharge what?
Impervious areas, proper grading strategies to recharge groundwater?
Well, they're trying to say that the runoff, you're recharging the runoff into the groundwater.
So from runoff?
Just say that, recharge runoff into the groundwater.
Well, yeah, that might be a better way to say it. To direct runoff for the recharge of groundwater or something like that. To allow runoff to percolate to groundwater.
To,
Okay, I think this should just be a question to Horsley Witten, how to rephrase this
Yeah,
so that it makes sense.
I'm just going to throw this out. It seems to me that you can just get rid of to recharge runoff.
that would work.
okay, so give it to me again, strategies to recharge.
Just, if you just say, with proper grading and strategies, can limit negative impacts on blah, 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 blah.
Okay. Okay,
Okay, can we move on to 2?
Yep.
Think so.
All right, landscaping, they're talking about no invasives, but what about where invasives are already present?
Well, that could be a question as to where does that go and how does that get put in here?
Yeah, because I'm thinking of, remember those properties we looked at with those huge masses of Japanese knotweed?
Yeah. Invasive management has,
Yeah, so Michael, if we could just have a question about where does invasive management go?
okay, under A or under 2?
under anywhere in landscaping.
Anywhere there,
Yeah.
yeah.
We look at a lot of projects, a lot of properties where there are invasive non-native species, and sometimes we ask the applicant to do something about them, particularly when we're searching around for some sort of mitigation. But we're not really consistent about, telling every applicant on every property that, well, you got Rosa rugosa, you got to pull all of that out as part of your project. So, I mean, we could just continue what we're doing, which is a little bit arbitrary, or we could think more about this.
I think we should think more about it. I would like to avoid arbitrariness. All right, on-site septic systems.
Well, can we, wait a second, so I want to get to on-site, but on D, it seems to me if we're talking about native species, do we need to specify that lawn seed mixes shall be drought resistant? Wouldn't they be drought resistant if they were appropriate to? Can we just say something like appropriate to the local environment?
John Portnoy?
I don't know what to do about lawns.
Yeah, people still like them for some reason. They like to,
Yeah.
and then they have to take care of them.
I mean, I'm just trying to think of lawns that are totally ignored and are like 100 years old, and there are lawns like that. I mean, I'd call them
Yeah.
lawns. Maybe lawn people wouldn't call them lawns, but you're trying to simulate that, then I think there are species that they produce some sort of a turf that you can play around on.
If we just say something like appropriate to the environment or the
I think
local.
that's too vague, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but that's, I don't like the fact that, we're implying that there's certain turf that's okay if it's drought resistant.
Oh, I see your point.
I have this question came up years ago and I put it to plant ecologist Steve Smith at the seashore, and he gave me a list of species I probably shared with Hillary, but I can dig that out. Native species that, grassy species that would work as some sort of lawn.
All right, let's just put a question here to
Okay.
investigate this further.
Okay, under C, I've got, and the specific stressors anticipated for different areas on the site. I just thought maybe it should be specific areas of the site.
That's fine with me.
There's, well, first of all, in the first line of C, we have to delete shall be.
Yeah.
And then to address Michael's comment, there could be other stressors, site-specific stressors besides drought, like people, foot traffic and that sort of thing, or salt spray.
Tolerant.
So we want to say other.
Yes.
Okay.
All right,
Um,
Hillary,
B, do we want 200 feet or do we want 300 feet ideally
300.
when possible?
what are you looking at?
No, I would
On the septic
just say
system?
300. Then they ask for a variance. If it's,
Where are we?
I think she's in
Site septic
3D.
3B.
3B, yeah.
Oh,
okay, I know this is, I'm being an asshole here, but let me just say, if the Board of Health does not go for the higher standards that we want, do we just want to say she'll meet the standards of the Wellfleet Board of Health?
well, there's a problem there because they have a different interest. Correct me if
That's
I'm
why
wrong,
I'm
Hillary,
raising
but
that.
they're after bacteria and we're more concerned with nutrients, which we travel
They're-
farther.
Yeah, they're into nutrients as well
Oh, okay.
because
Well-
of drinking water.
Yep,
Okay.
I'm just asking, do we want to say their standards, or do we want to say she'll meet the standards, appropriate to the Conservation Commission or something? And you have to meet the Board of Health standards.
Well, I think that the Board of Health will go along with the conservation. I don't think that's going to be an issue, but I just want to make sure we're wording this right. So in our no touch zone, 0 to 100, we want the enhanced IA. From 100 to 200, we want standard IA. Then we're saying we want everything 300 feet away. So from 200 to 300, will we accept a standard Title V?
Well, no, but this is just a leach field, right?
Yeah, but
On-site leach field.
that's the piece it hinges upon.
Right.
I think we're saying that, Hillary, we're implying that.
So from 100 to 300, then we want IA.
Right.
Okay.
And if you can be 300 feet away, then you can go with your standard Title V.
Okay, so I should have. Oh, there's too many IAs here.
Okay.
So if we've got there in the no touch zone IAs, so it's, does this get changed?
I think it does because I think our no touch zone is
100.
100 to 200 feet, but we want our IA septic systems from 100 to 300 feet from the wetland resource. I don't know what we call that.
I think we just put a note here to make sure that the two sections are matched up.
And maybe type in there, 100 to 300 feet so that we remember what we were talking about.
So you want to 300 feet.
Yes.
Okay,
All right, back to the section 3, on-site septic system. I still have a problem with A. They can't put in a septic system that doesn't meet the Board of Health. And I don't know why we would have it in there. Our concern is, our concern, Board of Health's concern is their concern. So if we leave that out, we don't have to worry about commensurate language.
okay, I'm trying to find it again here.
I think it gives direction to people who might consult our regulations first.
You just passed it, Michael. Stop. Stop. You got
Right
it.
here, got it right here.
3, on-site septic systems, A.
Right. So should we just ask about that?
Yeah, I would prefer taking it out, but
I don't see anything with a problem with leaving it in, John. Why is it problematic?
because we're two separate boards with two separate concerns, that they have to go to the Board of Health anyway. It's not like we're telling them something that, we're making a regulation here. They have to meet the Board of Health standard. Our concern is our concern. I think we should tell them they have to meet our standards and, it's their business. They need to meet the Board of Health. What if the Board of Health comes up with a different standard than we do? Then there's a problem, and there doesn't need to be a problem. If ours are more stringent than the Board of Health, then they still have to meet ours. If ours are less stringent than the Board of Health, they still have to meet the Board of Health. So I just don't think it's necessary, and I think it could, I would like us to be on the same page. I think we will be on the same page, but I don't want to mandate we have to be on the same page.
Okay. All right. Are we ready for outdoor rinsing stations?
I know, this is my issue, my grandson's issue.
Well, clearly they're going to talk to us about that because it's in their commentary.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Horsley Witten if this is really a concern, if there are studies to show that this is a serious problem relative to our interests.
I think they're just telling us not to use shower, but to use
Yeah.
a rinsing station, because if it's a shower, it has to be connected to your plumbing.
Yes, correct.
Are they different? How are they different?
Well,
If you have a All right, Hillary, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it comes down to terminology.
Yeah.
A rinsing station usually only has cold water, doesn't have hot water. So like there are specific differences, but you know what they are, I don't know that I could tell you beyond the water.
Well, that'll be an interesting way to achieve our goals. You can't only use cold water.
I like it.
It's simple solution.
Right.
Oh, cruel, cruel, cruel.
It's 50 degrees year round.
Is it
All
50?
right.
And I thought it was like 44. Is it really?
Oh, that's right. It's usually 50.
Okay. I have been giving misinformation to everybody then.
All right. Ready to go on to freshwater wetland?
Yeah.
All right. Let's hear the comments.
Under paragraph I, there's a typo. Third line down says temporal, should be temporary.
Yeah.
And then letter J, next paragraph down. Second line, insects, I'd change that to invertebrates, make it more general.
Okay.
And then in K, if I can continue, at the very end of paragraph K,
Yep.
it says that, let's see, presence of hydric soils, hydrology can supplement vegetative criteria, enhance technical accuracy, blah, blah, blah. For wetland delineation, especially useful for analyzing SERP sites. I would add where wetland vegetation has been removed, just to specify a little more there. Has been removed.
Okay.
Okay, unless someone else says something, I have something under performance standards. Removing, filling, dredging, draining freshwater wetlands where they are bordering or not is prohibited. I think bordering is kind of jargon that might be confusing to lots of people, and it should say bordering a larger water body. I think that's accurate, right, Hillary?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Or just leave it at wetlands is prohibited.
Yeah, could do that.
Okay. Any other comments?
Here, I do have a question here. Is this going to run us into problems with the state anti-mosquito control people?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
They can do what they like, unfortunately.
Okay.
We can't control them. All right, any other comments on this section? All right, coastal bank.
All right, I'm sorry. This thought just, when I first read it over, if we say it's prohibited and the state can do it anyway, do we run into a problem of someone saying, well, the state's doing it and you say it's prohibited, then why can't I do it when it's prohibited?
No, that's for mosquito control. It's for, you know, a specific.
Yeah, but what a private person says, I'm doing this for mosquito control.
Well, they'd have to prove it to us, John. Whereas the state presumptively is entitled to do it.
Actually, if you read the exemption, it doesn't specify the Cape Cod Mosquito Control Project. It says something like proper control of mosquitoes, but you can check that. So, you know, John's right. Somebody could say, oh, I'm controlling mosquitoes properly.
But they'd have to prove it to us,
Yeah. Can we take a 3-minute break?
of course.
Mhm.
So John Cumler, was it hard for you to get your appointment in Fall River?
It was impossible.
Oh.
I am so angry at the governor. It makes me spit. It was, and the minute I got mine in Fall River, I tried to put Judith on because she works in a nursing home and that she has a higher priority than I am. And we couldn't, there was no sites available and she still hasn't been able to get on. It is the worst possible system and it just drives me crazy. We are so incompetent at this that New Hampshire, the Albania of New England, is ahead of us.
Mhm.
It is, I mean, I get angry about all kinds of things, how Native Americans are treated, what happens to African Americans, you know, the environment and all this stuff. But this time I'm personally pissed off because it affects me personally. They have such a massively incompetent system. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to rant, but the arrogance of the governor to say, oh, it's simple. And if you have trouble, get a relative to help you. So good luck for the rest of you when it's your turn. By the way, and you can't schedule weeks in advance.
Deb, do you know if our bylaws are ready for the next town meeting?
I believe that the bylaw is ready,
Okay,
but I'm not sure. We'll have to talk to Hillary about that. I also don't know that we ever got a final copy of it with all the changes in it.
right. That's why I'm asking because they need to be voted on.
Right, I think we're too late already, Barbara, to tell you the truth. For submission.
Oh, Deb, I heard from Denny, who has experience from the bylaw or the Charter Review Committee. And he said that the way to handle subcommittees is to assign one person to do it who can then consult with other people.
That's not something we did on charter review, so I don't know what Denny's talking about. Okay,
Is that the Ryan Curley issue we had?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Hillary, I was just asking Deb where we are with our bylaws in terms of town meeting.
So we have not submitted anything for this spring town meeting. The original thought was that we could put the bylaw on the spring town meeting warrant. But I sort of then had a second thought that it makes more sense for us to have the regulations in hand and the bylaw in hand before we move anything forward so we can field questions. Because I think otherwise people are going to want to, you know, well, your bylaw says this, but your regulations don't match. The regulations are much easier to pass once we have them to a place that we're happy with. So I guess I'm assuming we'll have a fall town meeting. I don't know that, but in any case, we'll be lined up for next spring.
Okay,
So,
okay,
but we'll have
So-
both pieces.
right. We'll have both ready to go, which is a good idea. All right, section 204 Coastal Bank.
Do we have Mike and John?
I'm
I'm here.
Are there comments on Coastal Bank?
I believe there probably are. Under, in this language, under 1B, let's see, like mid-paragraph talks about coastal erosion, sediment removal of coastal banks, a naturally occurring process that's necessary to the continued existence of coastal beaches and so forth. I think that there should be something in there about bank retreat. We need to acknowledge here that coastal banks only provide sediment to do all these good things if they're allowed to retreat before sea level rise. You know, there's been a lot in these coastal engineering projects hearings. There seems to be this presumption among the engineers that they're just going to hold the line on bank retreat and everything's just fine because they're nourishing in front of this protruding coastal structure. I think we need to make it clear that I think if we all agree that coastal banks can only function in providing this sediment and maintaining beaches and marshes and so forth if they're allowed to retreat. That's how the system's supposed to work. But you know,
Retreat, period, or retreat and then explain why?
in retreat in the face of sea level rise. Coastal, they should be allowed, well, I think we need to acknowledge that they only provide sediment if this happens, if they're allowed to retreat in the face of sea level rise.
All right, I think that's something we should discuss with Horsley Witten to
Yes.
put in the section.
Mhm.
All right, other comments on coastal banks? All right, if we get to 2, activity that does not qualify as a CES. How do we want to deal with this? Because
I go back to what John has been talking about. Do we, I mean, this is a big thing, but do we want to use the term erosion at all?
Oh, I put it in.
Erosion implies a negative that there's the presumption of correcting to a positive. But
Yeah, that's fine. In front of sea level rise is fine.
yeah, and then, but we use erosion later on. I'm asking, I mean, if there's a reason for using erosion, let's use it. But I think it puts us, the defenders of the Conservation Commission, in the defensive. And I don't think we need to be there. What do other people think about that? I think it's a big significant.
I don't see erosion that way. I think it's just a descriptive term.
I think it has a negative implication. That we don't need.
It does have a negative connotation, but I agree with Debbie. It's strictly accurate. It's, you can't ignore it. I don't know what other word to use in its place that's more
Well,
positive.
I don't think we have to. It says coastal banks should be allowed to retreat in front of sea level rise. That would be my preference.
That's fine. We'll go with it. I mean,
Well, I mean,
Well, why don't we put in a question to talk about the nature of the word erosion and any negative context it has.
yeah, I guess to keep belaboring this brings the issue of, adding sand. Well, we've corrected the erosion by just adding more sand. And I don't think that's what we wanted.
Well, there is some good language up here before that about sediment removal for coastal banks is a naturally occurring process necessary to continued
Right.
existence and all that. That's good.
That's why I like that. And I like that language. I just don't like the erosion, but I'm belaboring this. Go on. Let's not.
Okay, I'm looking at section 2, activity that does not qualify as a CES. And I'm confused because I think a berm is a CES.
No,
No.
it's not. A berm, I guess, is just the dumping of sand. It's not a coastally engineered structure.
It's not made with hard materials, which we sort of defined in the definition of a coastal engineered structure.
Yeah. All right. Any other comments in section 2? Then going on to section 3.
I like that they added elevating existing structures as an alternative to a CES. But that's further down.
Right, I like in C that they talked about extending an existing CES over coastal bank area where one does not exist qualifies as a new CES.
So how does that agree with B3, where it says increasing or decreasing the volume of material by more than 5% of the original CES volume? Isn't that extending a CES? Why are we allowing a 5% increase in volume?
We can strike that.
Increasing or decreasing the volume of material. Is that referring to sand renourishment, or that's?
No, I think it's referring to the actual armoring material.
Yeah, it reads like it's the hard structure.
Okay.
So you would say strike 3?
Yeah. Also on number 2 above that, changing the materials, whether one type of armor for another or moving from an armor to a living shoreline approach, we should insert or vice versa, changing, in other words, changing from a living shoreline to armoring.
Yeah, I've got a suggestion, because I don't know we want to encourage that at all. So I think I agree, and in the comment, say we should reverse it.
Oh, okay, just the reverse.
Now, these are just definitions, right?
Of
Yes.
replacement.
Yeah, they're definitions of what a replacement is.
Mhm.
Okay, so moving on to replacement of or establishing a new CES, section 5. I like the sentence in A, protection of individual property alone shall not be sufficient as cause to establish a new CES or to replace an existing CES.
Yep. Under B,
Yeah.
newer replacement, CES that will reduce the ability of coastal bank to provide sediment to coastal beaches and so forth.
Yeah,
I can't, it seems to me this would prohibit any CES on a naturally retreating coastal bank.
agreed.
Would they not counteract that with, we're going to place, X amount of cubic yards
Right.
of
Well,
nourishment?
that's my argument to that, Hillary, and you've heard it before, sorry, is that the coast is retreating. And so this new Renera sand over time is going to be put in a place that's way out of equilibrium with sea level. It's going to be too far in a seaward direction. So it's going to get swiped right off the face of this structure, very quickly. It's in the wrong place. It's not equivalent to bank retreat sustaining beaches.
No, I know. We have to allow them in certain situations, as has been shown to us. But I don't know how to counteract that.
Well, maybe, I understand we have to allow them, but we have to, everywhere we can, make it clear that this isn't, it's not equivalent to a retreating coastal bank sustaining beaches. I don't want them to get away with this language all the time. That it's just the same as the coastal bank. We have a rock revetment
Right,
with sand.
right.
It's just the same. It's not the
Yeah.
same.
I agree with you. I'm just
Good.
telling you what we're gonna hear.
Not to talk about a particular case, but anyone should walk along the bay side where there is a soft structure and look at the end of that soft structure, and you will see that it's leading to greater erosion.
I was thinking it would be useful to have a look at that maybe tomorrow on site visits,
It would be.
if you can get out there.
Yeah, it'd probably be our only site visit because the others are all continued.
Except you also have the walk, the Wellfleet Conservation Trust walk.
Oh,
I did send
Sorry.
photos to Hillary and
Yes.
Debbie from
Yeah, I saw-
yesterday,
Thank you, John.
but it's nice to, see it right up personally.
Well, and I think the wind, well, at least the wind I heard in Dennis last night was crazy. So I don't know what happened in Wellfleet, but
It was
Thanks.
pretty wild here.
yeah.
But what direction was it?
Northeast.
northeast. Was in
Yeah,
north-
so it's not going to have a big impact out there.
No, we had this, was it 3 days ago? We had these ferocious northwesterly winds and an 11-foot tide.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the one that created the
Yeah.
situation I was referring to. There's a typo, standalone, I don't think is one word.
F, stand alone.
Oh, it's a typo.
It should be 2 words.
Yeah.
Well, actually, my word spell checker says it should be one word.
Oh, okay.
Use the hyphen. That's the safe.
All right. Moving on to analysis of alternatives. Are there comments on that?
Well,
Well, on 6A1, it says parcel, but if an owner owns a separate parcel on the other side of the street, can we say under land from the same owner?
Well, an alternative location.
Yeah, period. I like Debbie's answer.
Me
Alternative
too.
location. That's up to them to find the location.
I guess I feel like when we actually get these alternative analysis in hand, it's the most basic of three sentences saying we can't move the house, or like nobody really gives us great details. So I think I don't know how we get more information from them, but their purpose is to get what they want and give us the least amount of information on the alternatives. So maybe we need to see, like on the site plan, where the dwelling could be relocated. If another option, or if an option of relocation is possible, it must be shown on the site plan, or some way to get them to actually look at an actual alternative plan.
Okay, so moving threatened buildings or structures to an alternative location with accompanying site plan.
Yeah.
Can we, going back up to the first paragraph, is it possible for us to make this stronger by saying something along the lines that the Conservation Commission will seriously consider alternatives, and that it's the responsibility of the applicants to show that these are serious alternatives and not just, you know, thrown out there? Because they say, you know, there's no alternative, we can't move the building, et cetera, et cetera. I think we have to make it clear, we will take these alternatives as real. I don't know how to put it, but.
I think it's a question to Horsley and Witten, which is how to force more depth and consideration into the alternatives analysis.
I think somehow we need to inform the applicant that that we will take these alternatives very seriously. And if you don't give us reasonable alternatives, we're going to turn you down because of the fact your alternatives are not reasonable.
Well, I think that's why we need to ask for site plans and actual evaluation, not just three sentences on, you know, this just isn't possible. You know, whatever they usually give us, which is the same boilerplate thing they give us for each project.
Right.
So the more detail we can put into what goes into the alternative analysis in the regulation, the more they're going to kick to us.
And is there some way, I keep coming back, I don't know, is there some way, I mean, imagine a situation where they come up and say, you know, well, this is an alternative, this is an alternative, and what we're sort of on the defensive. Is there a way we can add language which said, you know, if the Conservation Commission feels the alternatives are more acceptable means to achieve the result, it's incumbent on the applicant to prove that the alternatives, that the burden of proof is on the applicant to prove the alternative solutions are not adequate.
Well, they already have to show us that no alternative is feasible, John.
Right, but they do, as Hillary said, it's just.
As little as possible.
When we said, and imagine a case where we said, what about moving their building? And they said, well, that's just not possible. What if we had the power to say, you know, you have to prove to us that this is not possible?
Well, I think we can always ask, why is it not possible? Give me the details.
I'd like it written down somewhere to give us more power. I just felt in a situation, imagine a situation where someone wanted to build a, you know, a revetment, and their alternatives weren't seriously investigated on our point of view, and we're on the defensive. I want them to be on the defensive in that case.
Well, I think it's a question for Horsley and Witten as to what we can require in terms of further detail to make sure that the alternatives are more completely expressed and supported.
I mean, from a philosophical point of view, we're asking them to prove a negative, which is bizarre, but still, I think we should.
Okay, under 2, just below that, the time period from the date of the, in other words, land currently or formerly owned by the applicant, but this limited to the time period after the effective date of the regulations. Is that the way we want to have it?
I don't think we can apply it before.
Okay.
Okay, other comments on section 6?
Nope.
Okay, section 7.
I mean, Debbie, can I go back to Michael's point?
Yeah.
I do think we need, I don't think we need the language limited to the time period after the effective date of the regulation. You don't want someone, who owns 2 parcels and can move the building to another parcel that's owned by the person, selling that second parcel, so they have no choice but to build a revetment. I just don't see it's necessary to have that language in there. That's my point.
Okay, we can't enforce these regulations for any period of time prior to the date when they become effective.
Right, but the question is the property ownership. That's the issue here, right?
But we can't, John, if they sold a piece of property before, we cannot change it.
Except we used to have that clause that says if you subdivided your parcel prior
To
to
2003, after
Yeah.
2003, yeah.
Yep. Then you must go back and evaluate all of the alternatives that would have been feasible prior to. So I wonder if that's kind of what we're getting at here.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Okay, so I think we just need to ask Hortsley and Witten to explain this section so that we can understand what it is meant to do.
And Hillary, that 2003 date is based on the revision of the bylaws. I mean, a revision of the environmental bylaw at that time.
I don't know the answer to that, John.
Oh,
It would make sense that it would be either a revision to the regulation or a revision to the bylaw, but I don't know.
okay. All right, doesn't matter right now.
Okay, section 7.
Can I come back? I'm sorry to do this, but I'm looking at my notes. Section 6C. Is living shorelines. I'm not sure if this is something we need to get into. Because my feeling is that in most cases, living shorelines are not really a feasible alternative. They're not going to stop with sea level rise, the retreat of the coastal bank. And I think that by putting in living shorelines, that gives them a way to say, well, look, we tried planting plants and that didn't work. So now we have to, that was our alternative and it can't work. I I just don't know if we want to put that in. I mean, do people think living shorelines is really an alternative?
Well, in some
see,
cases it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
in some cases. In some cases where the, if you don't have a really dynamic shoreline, I've seen examples for like inside of Nauset, the edge of the Nauset Marsh, where it's just not a high energy coast where it works for a while, it doesn't work forever. But the examples that we've seen, I can only think of one that I've seen in Wellfleet. It was put on in the face of a velocity zone, and it's fallen apart.
What about the salt? Is that the Salt Marsh project on Lieutenant Island?
Yeah.
Okay. It's not holding up.
No, I peered at it when we were there for that. That we had a hearing on another property
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Is
Okay.
that Thaler that you're
Yeah.
talking about?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just raising it as a question if we want to allow, if by putting it in, we just create more problems for ourselves in the long run.
Is it defined in here?
Yes,
Yes.
there's,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Way back at the beginning.
All right.
Don't take it out on my suggestion. I'm just throwing that out.
Well, we'll just ask a quick question.
Can I ask a quick question while we're not back in the definition section?
Go ahead, Hillary.
I don't want to lose sight of a new definition for us for new construction.
I think that was addressed, wasn't it?
Yes,
Okay.
That was addressed in one of the sections, and I'm not going to be able to find it.
Okay, that's fine. I don't need to know it. I just wanted to make sure we didn't lose sight of it. That's fine.
yeah, and as far as living shoreline definition, we actually had a problem with it, the definition that we want to explain, because it said that it may or may not be fortified by a subsurface structural elements or above or a small scale above ground structural features. So
Okay.
we wanted more clarity on that.
More understanding of what those are.
Hillary, I think that issue you're talking about was addressed in my copy on page 19 in
Okay.
section 4, where there's a long description of projects which include substantial demolition. It talks, and I think it addresses what's new and what shall be viewed as a new building.
Okay. Okay, because I want to make sure we can say that CESs are not permitted on new construction.
Yeah, they're using a definition which says if you leave one wall there,
Right, which is the
it's
zoning definition.
right.
Well,
Can
it's
we- can
removing
we-
of more than one.
Can we differ from the zoning
Yeah.
regulation? Oh, well, let's do it.
I just want to make sure we don't get caught up again where we are now. We want to be clear that a demolition and a rebuild, we consider new construction, and CESs in our local regulations are not permitted for new construction. So that it's clearly spelled out in the regulation.
So you want something in this 4?
Well, I think just a note there, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know where I want it. I mean, maybe I want it in definition under new construction, like just so that I don't know where I want it. I just don't want to forget it.
Well, we do have this wording. Projects which include substantial demolition, i.e. removal of more than one exterior wall and subsequent reconstruction of a dwelling shall be considered a new building and shall site as much of the project as possible outside of the protection zone. So there is something, but
Well, if we just add the sentence that Hillary's looking for, no CS is allowed for new construction.
right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to lose where we are. That's okay. That's
Me
great.
neither. I just didn't want to lose sight of that thought.
No. I think we're at CES design requirements, section 7.
Right.
And I don't know if there are comments on that.
I had just a question on letter C, where it mentions sediment green size analysis. I can't remember that we get green size analyses on a lot of these renourishment projects. Just wanted to put that
I
out
don't
there. I don't know.
remember ever getting it done.
We used to get them a lot.
Yeah, well, we need to get those.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't been paying close attention, but I don't remember getting them lately.
We used to get them all the time. I haven't seen them recently.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other comments on section 7?
I have a comment, and I don't know where it goes, but it's about the repair of a revetment. And I wonder if we could put in language that a repair of a revetment that has been, I am thinking of the case we had a couple weeks ago where the shoreline is retreating, and that we don't want the revetment repair in the same location where the shoreline is. If the shoreline is retreating, we want the if they're replacing the revetment to retreat as well.
It's section 4, Mike, repair of an existing CES.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand it. That was the
John's
issue
point.
of where they were going to put the vinyl sheeting,
Right.
whether it was in front of the seawall that exists or behind the seawall that exists.
And John made the point that in fact, the bank has retreated significantly so that the repaired CES should in fact be where the bank is, not where
Yes.
the old one is. Is there a way we can put that in somehow?
I think we just put a note there for now in section 4 to raise that issue, because I think that's a whole discussion, and it's also a discussion of pre-1978 properties and what we can do. I'm not disputing that you're right, John. I just.
Oh, no,
don't-
I understand that, Debbie. I'm not questioning what you're saying. I
I'm
just
I'm just not sure what we can do about that. Hillary, do you have thoughts on that? Whether we could force them to move the revetment back?
Well, we have forced them, and I'm thinking of Stossel. Clyde Way owned the house before John Stossel, and his wall came down, and they had initially proposed to put it out, and we said that's completely senseless. You need to put it where the bank is. So where the bank retreat is I think we can just state that it needs to go where the bank retreat is, not hold an artificial line. I mean, because it's ridiculous.
Okay, so
So I think we just need Horsley Witten to give us language that says the structure will follow the natural line of the bank, not, I don't know how to phrase it,
where
but
the existing structure necessarily is.
exactly.
right, in section 4.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we were looking at section 7. Were there any other comments on section 7? You know, let me just say something, and then John, you go ahead. You know, listening to John Portnoy talk about beach nourishment, I just wonder if I know we're sort of stuck in doing that, but I'm wondering if it's a good thing to do, because we're just building up an area which should be washing away. The nourishment should be in a totally different area. So I'm wondering how we address that issue.
Well, so we are working on sensible nourishment locations with our grant from CZM. We're on a 2-year grant cycle, which started in the summer, maybe. So just thinking of timing, we can put, and we usually put language in our orders that say, such and such cubic yards to go here or at a specific location as determined by the Conservation Commission. So we sort of need to finish that project, but we can include language in the renourishment section, maybe that will bring that into the picture as well.
Can I, and I may be saying what Hillary just said, but on section 2, it says that that nourishment may be discontinued or reduced in scale and frequency. Is there any way we could reinforce that by a sentence saying that an existing renourishment permit does not guarantee continuous permission? In other words, just because someone has permission to renourish now doesn't mean they get to renourish. We should have in our regulations that they have to come back for us and we get to change the renourishment requirements as we feel meets the present situation. They shouldn't, be able to sort of say, well, but you let us do it in the past, we get to do it forever. I want a more affirmative statement in not in the order of conditions we give them, but in our regulation, that they have to, that it's incumbent on them to I don't know what word to say. You see what I'm trying to get to? Let me try to explain it.
No, I understand what you're saying, John. And I think what you're saying gets covered in the order of conditions, because there is the condition in there that the commission can call you back before them at any time to reevaluate conditions.
All right, let me give you an example of something that happened to us in the past.
Yeah.
Someone went from dumping a relatively small amount of sand to dumping several thousand cubic yards of sand. And when we challenged that, they said it wasn't in the order of conditions that we had to, that limited how much sand that we could put there or when we had to come, back. I'm just saying, I don't want it dependent on the order of conditions. I want it in our regulations that that having permission to renourish is not does not give them perpetual authority to renourish whenever and whatever they want. You see, I don't want it in the order of conditions. I want it in our regulations, because there are times when we let those things slip as a commission, and then future commissions are tied by our failure to specify in the order of conditions. Is
I
that-
think you have a very good point, John. And just as an example, Nancy's saying that some of these renourishment projects are causing issues with shellfishing grants. So I think a reevaluation is necessary. It can't be just a blanket renourishment order. So somehow, I think that's a good idea, that these projects have to be reevaluated periodically. I don't know what the time frame would be, but we don't have to debate that right now, but we should think about it.
Right. I
Yeah.
think it would be a question that while we order replenishment in perpetuity, what process do we use in order to bring them before us to reevaluate? And should that be in the regulations?
Yeah, I think we need to have a larger discussion on that. I understand.
Okay, then going on to allowable structures. Unless there are other comments.
We need to add to that letter H, all components shall be labeled identifying property owner.
And I'm also wondering if we should encourage that the bottom section be a removable
Yes.
somehow as well.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is, so H and I, removable and label, but when we were out at a site on Samoset, the coastal engineer was saying that other towns use an elevation of 24 inches rather than 18 inches. And is there a reason to do that, Hillary?
Not
Does
that
it
I'm
allow
aware
better
of.
growth of
I mean, you
plants?
could get more growth. I don't know that the difference between 18 and 24 is so great.
I don't either. I just, that was his comment and I just noted it at the time and I was curious.
Oh, and probably if it's removable, it shouldn't be stored on the vegetation.
Right,
No.
thank you. So H would be labeled
Yep.
and I would be removable and not stored on vegetation,
Stored outside the no touch zone.
stored outside the protected area. Have them bring it all the way up.
Oh, my goodness.
No.
I'm going to say F is vague on a resting landing on a stairway that shall seat no more than 2 individuals. I'm not sure what, does that mean they can't have a seat, a permanent seat that can hold 2 individuals? That means,
No, it can't hold more than 2 individuals, so they're building the smallest sort of resting spot in the steepness of the steps that's possible.
Instead of a deck.
Instead of a deck or, yes, exactly.
right.
Okay, Michael, are you all set?
Yeah, so is that more or less one under H?
Yeah. You know, we might want to change coastal bank or wetlands, but I'm not going to debate that now. All right. Inundation protection zone 205. Are there comments on that?
All right, so this is changing from land subject to coastal storm flowage and ACEC. Inundation protection zone is fine for land subject to coastal storm flowage. I'm not sure it covers ACEC. Because the ACEC is kind of a strange,
Creature.
yeah.
So would you separate out ACEC?
Maybe inundation protection zone and ACEC, or I'm not
Okay.
sure, but.
Any comments other than that?
Yeah,
on-
on second line down in that presumption of significance, first paragraph. It says, subject to inundation from coastal or riverine waters. Well, we don't have much in the way of rivers. They don't really flood anybody. So I think we should delete riverine and insert inland waters.
Well, what about the Herring River, right? Isn't that going to flood everybody?
That's not much of a river.
But it might be someday, John.
Well, then it's coastal water. I hope to see that. We have more lakes and freshwater wetlands.
Yeah,
This is sort of boilerplate from somewhere else where you talk about
Yeah.
riverine flooding. It just doesn't
Right.
really happen.
yeah, we're not gonna have that. I agree. I agree.
Anything else in 205?
Oh,
Wait,
this-
hold on one sec. Can I just look at the Wellfleet Harbor, ba, 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 ba. Down a little tiny bit. Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, we're under ACEC, right?
Yep. Okay. Okay.
On storm damage prevention there, the third paragraph says topography, soil structure.
Yeah.
then it has this in parentheses, composition, size, density, and shape. I don't know what all that means. So I would replace that with, for example, organic content and grain size. And I think that covers it.
I think they're talking about the soil structure, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
they're getting into like soil evaluator talk there.
Yes. But if you look at each one of these nouns, composition, size, density, I guess that's
So,
particle
like-
size, density, shape, you know, are those.
Those are all like soil evaluator terms. Like they all have like characteristics under them.
Yeah, I know, well, density, I know what that is, but I don't know what
Shape,
shape is, and I
that's
don't know what
blocky.
size is.
Blocky, or I'd have to
Oh.
like delve deep into my soil evaluator, like subset
right.
terminology.
All right,
but-
well,
But
I'll
there
take
there are things that fall under those categories. I don't know that we need that here.
yeah. Okay, well, maybe just delete the parenthetical phrase.
Yeah, I agree with John on that.
Because the only person that's going to know it is probably me or John when I get my soil evaluator book out and refresh myself.
Wow.
Blocky is the only one that's coming to mind, but there are others.
No, I actually don't know those terms.
Okay. Any other comments?
About anything?
Yeah, no, about this section. Going through prevention of pollution.
Under 4 sea level rise, John Kumbler, you know that when it says for thousands of years, the sea level has been rising. It was falling before that, wasn't it, during the ice ages?
Yeah, but it fell during the ice ages, but then it rose, but then also the earth rose when the ice melted. So I don't know what thousands of years have been, 10,000 years it's been rising.
So maybe just hundreds would be better.
I don't know.
No, it's accurate is written.
Thousands are accurate. Yeah, let's leave it at thousands.
Okay,
The other
It's-
thing with that is, I think that well, first of all, is this, they need to put, if they're going to have they're going to cite something, they need to have a literature cited section so we can find this publication. But also, this is 1978, this publication for the rate of sea level rise. So I think that needs to be updated, because they go on to talk about 1 foot per 100 years later in the paragraph. And it's
Yeah.
faster than that now.
I think that was the old citation in our current regulations, actually, the Geis
Okay,
and
all right.
Mayo. So that can be updated for sure.
Okay, so just a note to update section 4. Okay, comments under bleh. I see
I'm sorry, my brain works very slowly, if it works at all. But I'm going back to Michael's point, which I actually think is a very good point. And it's true that the sea level has been rising for thousands of years. But in fact, it's the acceleration of the sea level within the past 200 years is what we're concerned about. So I don't know if we want to say that, it's been rising for thousands of years.
Well, what if we put a note there to deal with current circumstances, since they're going to update the articles on the rate of sea level rise, they could also update the existing the articles on the acceleration of sea level rise.
Perfect.
All right, continuing on. Comments? Before we get to 206.
Well, under 4A1, should we add that the business about anchoring down the footings, like with diamond piers or stuff like that? So that the building doesn't float away and cause damage?
Yeah, and we're gonna change up gradient wherever we need to change it.
Or not.
Or not, right? Hillary, talk me through the use of diamond piers and helical piers. It appears that it should not ever be done in an erosion area or an area where, so at some point, we need to deal with that. I don't know if it needs to be in regulations or we need guidance on when that absolutely should not be used, because if the land changes, and we know the land changes, it renders the structure unstable.
Well, I think that the key thing that I was thinking of is when we have structures, particularly in a flood zone, we don't want them to float away, so they have to be anchored. And if there's erosion, whether it's anchored or just sitting on cinder blocks, it's still going to be the same problem.
No, it's not the same problem, because remember, we've been told that if one of the piers fails, all the piers will fail.
Well, those are the helical piers. I'm talking about just instead of cinder blocks,
Diamond
that
pier.
these secondary structures should have a way so that they just don't float away.
Yeah, but are these diamond piers going to respond any differently than helical piers? That's my question.
Well, these are secondary structures.
They're used for smaller projects, Debbie. They're usually not attached to a full like foundation basement type of system. The diamond piers, the helical anchors are different.
Don't we want to say where appropriate or appropriate rather than specify any one or the other for appropriate for present and future conditions?
Yes.
Yes, that makes sense. We're really, yeah.
So,
I think we want to say present and future because the conditions are changing.
Yes.
I have to get off for a minute.
All right, are there other comments before we get to 206, which I think we've reviewed already?
Nope. On the small vessel section, on the small vessel section, Ryan wants to have greater discussion about this. Just
Okay.
while I'm thinking of it, he's asked Maria if he can speak to me. So
I think Hillary, this is not the end all and be all of this discussion. We're gonna
okay,
We're going to meet with Horsley and Witten. We're going to have public session
Okay,
on the regulations. So we're
Um,
not,
The
we're
the only thing, Deb, is that if we want to have anything in place, even educational materials for this year, we should vote on the revisions that the subcommittee has come up with. If not, it's going to be another year of these things in the grass all over the place. And we have a AmeriCorps person who's got the time to work on some
Yeah.
things. So I think that can be done separately from the entire packet of regulations.
I agree with you because I think the clearer we can make this now, the easier the summer will be, because we don't want to have a repeat of what has happened last summer. So I agree with Barbara that we can move the small boat stuff along as we see fit and keep it in here for, future discussion, obviously, but we're going to have to do that sooner rather than later.
okay. So is it on the business meeting?
I think it's always on there.
And I should also mention that if this regulation is passed, it gives the Audubon more ammunition to change the way things are on Lieutenant Island. That
All
they're,
right. So if the vessel report is up for a vote, either on the meeting tomorrow or the meeting in 2 weeks from tomorrow, could you talk to Ryan in between if Maria agrees to that and tell him about that and have him come and speak to us about whatever it is that his concerns are?
Yes, and I think his concerns are relative to Chapter 91 and our regulations, but I couldn't quite make heads or tails of it the last time he tried to speak to us about this. And I know, Barbara, you spoke with him or exchanged emails with him, but yes, we can ask him to come and talk about it. That's fine. But so once we approve the subcommittee's report, then we go ahead and advertise for a regulation change. So it's kind of a two-pronged thing.
Okay.
So in any case, there will be time for people to come and talk to us about it if they're unhappy.
So Barbara, why don't we put it up for approval and then,
yeah, I think Chris attached the proposed regulation to the town's Zoom link for this meeting,
Good,
for the
perfect,
meeting on Wednesday.
great.
Not the report, but the change to the regulations.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, the only change would be, that came out of the discussion last time, was shifting the Old Wharf Point out of the town
Right.
list, which I just done.
Good. Did Horsley Witten have any comments on this section?
No, they said that they didn't really look at this part.
Yeah.
okay, so is there anything else that we need to address on the regulations?
Just a thought, Mike, if you could collate the commentary, either you or I could send it back to Horsley Witten so they have it before our next meeting. So we have them scheduled to come in February 17th to the business meeting. So if we get this to them, today or tomorrow, that gives them what, like 2 weeks or to work on it?
Yeah, but you can send them what we're going to be discussing. In other words, Barbara has put together all the comments and it's on our agenda and it was attached.
Yeah, no. I'm not thinking the vessel thing. I'm thinking our
Oh, the whole thing.
comments on the draft regulations.
Yeah, I can send it to you as soon as we get out. I mean, I've been keeping it up live, so everything is as we've talked about it.
Yeah, that's great. And then I can send that back to Horsley Witten so they'll be prepared and we can engage in a useful conversation at that business meeting where we don't have to go through line by line. Because if they have a question on a comment, they can reach out to me between now and then, and we can sort of try and settle some things before then.
Right, so I shouldn't send it to everybody. I should just send it to you and then you'll distribute it, or should I send it to the whole commission?
I think you send it to everybody so we all have it.
Okay.
Thank
Consider
you,
it
Mike.
about to be done.
Great.
All right, is there anything else?
No.
All right, then I need a motion to adjourn this special business meeting.
Oh, boy,
moved.
that's not a motion. That's a few.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
they get
Okay.
shot.
We're done.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
Thank
all
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Michael, thank you especially.
Yeah. Yeah, all right.